My understanding surround the truth of things, and my truth is mixed up in me. And the truth of my
Alright folks, we're in lesson 2 of the Bible study. Series 2, part 2. I recall we stopped at page 13. Now let us look to the devout, who never play into the game, but continue to deny them. These folks usually end up the news doing weird, dangerous acts. This is done by the manipulation of the psychological ego defense mechanisms, either internally or spiritually. These are the folks that the entities love to whisper to. The Ahriman entities are aggressive in nature and can provoke quite a reaction out of somebody. They are trying to free this person from enslavement, but the person keeps fighting and contorts more till some type of destructive act occurs, freeing the individual. That may come in the form of suicide, murder, or other heinous acts. These acts are considered evil and evil-inspired. But the reality of it is, fighting the holy fight drives them into madness and evil. So in other words, these evil, heinous acts that are the devil, that are inspired by the devil, are actually because somebody chose to fight freedom. Somebody chose to remain good. Somebody chose to continue to contort themselves, to not allow themselves the expression of their animalistic nature. So if you learn to accept your animal nature and use it as a tool, and learn to whisper back, wonderful changes can occur in your life. Learn to work with evil, and you will wield its power. Fight with evil, and it will wield power over you. Again, learn to work with evil, you can wield its power. Fight with evil, and it will wield power over you. Can't stress that enough. Don't become a spiritual or religious victim because the holy law is such. You decide by your own defined morality how far down the rabbit hole you will go and celebrate bring a natural creature of the earth that has attuned with the original denizens of hell. Alright, at this point, we're going to move into this church's, what they would call mythology, the creation story, these types of things. Let's all keep in mind that these are originally designed to teach a moral lesson to the folks of a religion or the folks of a philosophy, and that's what this is about, is teaching a lesson. Okay, to teach you the accepted behaviors and lessons of this particular religion or culture. Beginning of time. Purusha is being of 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, and 1,000 feet. It is the essence of the universe. The other name for this essence is Quashak Hakwarik, the mother of the twin sons Hormazad and Ahriman. From this light of consciousness sparked into the universe known as Zervan, the beginning of time. The infinite became finite because of Zervan's existence. Zervan had an overwhelming need to have a son Hormazad, aka Ahura Mazda. Through this need, Zervan began to sacrifice the essence Purusha. Through 1,000 sacrifices, the devas were created, and Zervan was unaware. During these 1,000 sacrifices, Zervan began to build doubt. This was a self-conscious doubt that all of his effort was in vain because there was no sign of change. So in other words, the consciousness that sparked into the universe wanted a son so bad. So it continued to take the essence and sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice the essence. And over time, and over 1,000 years, he began to build doubt. Like, all this in vain. I'm doing all this to try to create this son, and everything's in vain. So doubt. He's starting to doubt himself, he's doubting his ability, he's doubting his environment. But it's mostly a self-conscious doubt because he thinks he's not accomplishing anything. And this is your Godhead, by the way. This is the creator, not the demiurge, I guess. We're not going to use those terms. He is the quote-unquote thing, the consciousness that sparked into reality to create the universe. Within the womb of Kawash Hawarik developed a son known as Hormazad, and through Zervan's insecurity of doubt, Ahriman became fruit within the womb as well. Over time, the twin gods developed within the essence of the universe. Outside, Zervan became excited as Deva Nainshite, aka Shiva, made Zervan aware of the twins. Nainshite convinced Zervan to decree that the first son by his side would receive the kingdom. So it was decreed. Decree is a kingly rule. The king says this is going to happen, so this is going to happen. Period. David Nainshite was able to communicate with Ahriman through the womb. Nainshite informed Ahriman of Zervan's decree. This vexed Ahriman into action. At this point in time, Ahriman was unaware of Hormuzan. Now, with this new understanding of both the decree and the race to Zervan, Ahriman had to act fast. So, through the doubt, through the despair, the god Ahriman was created in the womb, along with the god Hormuzan. They were unaware of each other at this point. It was still in the beginning. Things were still being created. And so now, from this point forward, for quite some time, it's going to be from the devil's perspective, from Ahriman's perspective, what he saw, what he experienced, how he saw reality meld and become. And that's how this next portion of the book is going to go. So there's going to be a lot of I statements and so forth. When I became self-aware, all was darkness. Complete stillness within a black chasm filled in a watery base. Throughout my time within, I would bump into another who was like me but not yet self-aware. I did not know that was my brother, let alone my sworn enemy at the time. If only I had known then, I would have destroyed him. As things developed, I began to hear exterior noises, and over time I began to understand these noises. My brother did become self-aware and also understood the noises. While he rested, I heard the noise say, "I will grant my favor to whom is born first." In my mind, I saw my father Zervan. That motherfucker promised favor over everything to the firstborn. There was also another voice who spoke to me. He called himself Nainshite. He explained to me what that meant. He also explained that if I didn't find my way out, my chances were slim. The lesson of creating my own was learned before birth. I hold Deva Nainshite above all others, and this is why. Then I moved about, bouncing off of everything to find a way out. Of my own mother. There was no way. I became desperate. I wanted to appease and attain favor. The walls felt pliable, so I grabbed and clawed at them. Shuddering began. Other noises followed, and I attained a greater focus and determination than I ever did, a joy of triumph. At the time, I was unaware of what was happening to my mother, or even what she was. I kept tearing and calling into the pliable solid, and felt a surge of energy and desperation. I took in this energy, and it elated and drove me to continue to my goal. My intended focus became sharp and precise. My surroundings were shuddering, and noises of pain pushed my energy levels to a cataclysmic push. I remember as I tore through the threshold of her flesh, a huge burst of my energy and her essence slung into the void. As I pulled myself out, my father Zervan grabbed me by the throat. He looked me over and said, "Thou art dark and stinky. You are not my son." Zervan, did he just abort himself to fulfill your decree? Does he not get your favor and kingdom? Asked Nainshite. I stared at Zervan. My gaze pierced his mind. The fear overtook him. This again spiked my energy level. This was an uncontrollable rush. I started shaking and becoming jittery. This drove Father Zervan's fear even more. Then he threw me into the void and said, "For you have destroyed the essence, you shall rule alone." So in other words, when Ahriman got out of his mother and thought that he had saved the day, proclaimed the mountain, he was snatched up. And Zervan said, "You're dark and stinky. You ain't my son. You gotta go. And since you killed your mama, I'm gonna throw you off in this fucking chasm and leave you on your own to fend for yourself." Basically what that means. So I ended up in the dark recesses of the universe. It seemed to me as I tore my way out, the husk that I was in exploded. All the pieces turned into what is known as stars, planets, and galaxies. Enraged, I moved towards a planet. I held it between my hands and I crushed it. Pieces of it floated around me. I looked over the pieces. One reminded me of Zervan. I grabbed that piece. My rage lit up the rock. I threw it, and a comet was made. My shiny hate rock was used to cause more destruction. Looking around, I saw that the planet circled around a star. Interested, I floated over to the star. It was a ball of fire beyond what I have seen. I touched it, and it was like a pliable solid of the husk. I wondered if I could manipulate this like I manipulated the planet. I put my hands around it like before, and again, I used my rage to push my energy into the star. The star expanded until it exploded. The fire and energy was enveloping an over vast area around me. The planets and all things around me were destroyed. It energized me, and I laughed. Then, just as energy exploded out, it then imploded into a swirl. This black hole acted as a vacuum to the pieces to all that exploded. I grabbed another rock that floated by and charged it with my rage and threw it into the hole. The rock flew and disappeared. Curiously, I put my head into the hole, and all I saw was darkness unharvested. This was mine. I created it. The darkness undefiled by the light. I entered into the all-consuming hole. I knew and felt both father and brother would never see me here. So he created the first black hole and went into it. From here I could watch the actions of my brother. That fucker created light that contained both endless form and endless light. He harnessed pieces of the husk to create something. What was it? A planet that revolved around a star he had blessed? On this planet were living creatures that he made by harnessing the order of the universe. I wanted this endless light and form. I left the darkness and made my way towards this earth. Before I could come back out, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Nonshite's voice rang out. Wait, Father, it's not what you may think it is. The light is your brother, and he is afraid of your power. This is your domain, and we are here with you. I looked back behind me and saw Nonshite, and beyond was 30 to 40 others with him. They hold both male and female gender, and all had their own unique abilities to themselves. These were my creations as well. The dark, odorous stench of my hand had corrupted them as I was corrupted. They were made from the same doubt I was. The original descendants of my domain, known as Hell, I honor each of them. Nonshite, what is it that my brother fears? Father Zervan made infinity to finite by creating Hormazon. His long bouts of sacrifice created doubt, thus creating you. Your forced birth created all that is here before you, to include our brethren here. Know that your destructive, chaotic means influences all things, as does Hormazon's compulsion to make all into order. You, Father, are the antithesis to the finite. Only you hold the power to destroy Hormazon. Understand that everything that Hormazon creates requires parts of his own essence, and all that fall under Hormazon's domain will be consumed to replace his essence. All that you create will become through the destruction of Hormazon's creation, and your essence is never sacrificed or diluted. So in other words, what he's saying is, Hormazon can create things, but he spends his energy, he spends his essence to create these things. So ultimately, when these things are no longer of use, he consumes them back to retain his energy. But since Ahriman uses creation through destruction, he never has to sacrifice his own energy, nor does he have to dilute himself with the energy of something else in order to keep going. So over the time, as things are being created and destroyed, and Hormazon's absorbing them back in, he's diluting himself with dead energy, unpure energy, whatever type of energy it is, in order to replace its essence. I hear them conspire against me, and I know within the division over time they shall be conquered. We, all of us, shall leave here and undo what they have done. Zervan may have the power to control. We have the power to undo this. They conspire war over me. Let us take the war to them first. All my Deva looked at me and knew I spoke the truth. I held the rod of wisdom. Skin of blue set ablaze amongst them. The internal heat of the gods burned brightly throughout our realm. The black flame of wisdom beckoned from my rod, and it burned just as brightly. Deep in the chasm were all sorts of creatures that warmed up to each Deva, and they now had their own legion of Dew and Druge. Our family stood together. We all knew what had to be done. Go forth and let us do what has to be done. Next chapter. Confrontation. As we pierced the veil back into the universe, Father and Brother knew we disrupted the order that was being created, and it was stifling and stiffening. We could move about, but our minds felt condensed, and I felt this weird tingle that wasn't there before. It was the endless light. It penetrated all things. Hormazad had created a way to become omnipresent through the light. Where was this coming from, and how do we combat it, I questioned myself. Some spinning sensation had occurred, and we stood before Zervan and Hormazad. They had an additional with them, that fucking light, Mithra. My hatred began then and there for that penetrating light bearer. Swarva rushed towards Mithra, and it took both Nanshite and me to stop him. I kissed Swarva on the forehead and thanked him, but we had to hear the enemy out first. Control your dogs! The corrupted are not welcome, yelled Hormazad. Turn off your light bearer, and I'm sure you won't get such a violent reaction. We are enraged by your blinding light that penetrates all in this realm, to include our thoughts and will. This hatred will be your undoing, I popped off curtly. Zervan used his right hand to close the eyes of Mithra. The oppression had been lifted, and all could assume themselves freely again. Zervan grinned as he looked me over. My father knew damn well what he had created with that Mithra, and I swore to myself that I would have that killed and dismounted before Zervan's very feet. I'm the Lord of Oppression, and not one of mine has a power like that. Ahriman, I know damn well you are aware of what is happening, which is why you were brought here with you. The kingdom belongs to Hormazad, and you created your own realm. Now I change all. All shall rest in the microcosm of the realm that will belong to man. Just as all of you are free of mind, so will man, and he shall have free will. Man will have to choose between order and chaos, and all shall be bound to this. Whichever one, you who can harvest the most souls of man, shall have my favor in the kingdom. Thus spoke Zervan. Are you serious? The game is a harvesting of souls? Fear me indeed. Rather play games than fight? I tried to reason with Zervan. Hormazad and Zervan looked at one another, both had vile grins on their faces. The two fools had no clue I could read and feel their emotions. Smug bastards thought that they had a foolproof plan. Looking deeper into Zervan, I see his fear. He feared his own destruction, and it would only come if finite became infinite to gain. And that would only happen if Hormazad understood doubt. If Hormazad knew darkness, we would both explode and set everything back to nothingness. I questioned whether or not if consciousness is worth this game. Looking into the eyes of Father, I called him out. Father, why don't Hormazad embrace on this game? Absolutely not, you vile being of corruption. You stay where you are at. This will be done the way I say it will be. You are unworthy to be with us, who are of purity and righteousness. Zervan proclaimed like a bitch. Fear me then. I will play your twisted game. Just know that I will meet you again with a weapon that will even kill fate itself. I said as calmly as I could. Zervan pointed to what is known as Earth with his left hand and uncovered Mithra's eyes with his right hand. Then another figure appeared, Varuna. The endless light and the endless form came together to create this blue egg made of some crystal. I laughed at the display of power. I turned and looked at Nanshite, then asked, "Is this what we are to attack?" We attacked this spirit of the sky. We continued to chip away at the crystalline exterior. Eventually it gave way and had to become bountiful. Thus water in the atmosphere was created through my destruction. Land rose up out of the water, and the grandest mountain that sought commune with the sky, Alvarez, a holy place for mortals. The fools thought the universe centered itself here to rotate. Over time, the first plants grew. One tree in particular, the sienna tree. Let's discuss what the sienna tree is before we go on. And actually, let's discuss what these other places are. Alvarez is a holy place. It's a huge mountain in between Iraq and Iran. It's considered a very holy place. They still worship it. You can think of it similar to how the Japanese look at Mount Fuji. It's supposed to be a very spiritual place. It's huge. There are a lot of crevices, a lot of caves. Supposedly within this mount is the gateway to hell known as Arizira. It's supposed to be within the rim of that mountain somewhere, and that's why they say to the lands of the north and refer to the Zoroastrian times. They believe that the universe and so forth would rotate around the mountain itself. As if the mountain was the highest peak of the world. And for them, I guess it would be, since they hadn't seen other mountains. And that the zodiac rotated around that mountain. And that's how astrology began, by focusing off of how the earth rotated and so on and so on. Now, the sienna tree is this large tree that supposedly held all the seeds to all the plants for the world. And then there's this large falcon type bird known as the sienna bird. In Zoroastrianism, it is considered a very holy bird. In fact, most birds are considered angelic and auric, and that's why you see in Christianity and several religions that angels have feathered wings versus bat wings. The sienna bird, according to their lore, would get mad, it would squawk, and it would flap its wings, and it would shake the tree. And when the tree shook, all the seeds would fall and catch onto the wind and be spread that way. Now, that sounds a little ridiculous because we all know what birds do to spread seed. So we will be taking a jib and blaspheming the sienna bird as well. We're moving forward into that. And this tree was a bird. This bastard called sienna spread the seeds of this all plant. Again, the all tree with all its seeds. I've never seen this then, nor since the creation, that shat on everything. They don't tell you that their seed spreader was a bird that was full of shit. I was amused and left it alone. Then that fucker Mithra created that white bull which ate of the gecko carina plant. The gecko carina plant is a plant that was supposed to grant immortality to man. It's supposedly an ingredient to soma and several other things that in order to grant immortality. Anyway, moving on. I had some plans for that luminous reflection of light. Just to mock Mithra, I snatched up the bull, took it into the sky all the way to the moon, where I ripped it open from asshole to mouth. I then sprinkled its guts all over the earth, laughing the entire time. Alas, many more plants and animals grew from its entrails. So he destroyed the bull and created other animals and plants from the destruction of the bull. Finally, as promised, the first man appeared before me on the bank of the river the Vedaiti. I laughed at this ox-looking man. It was luminous like the bull. Real hard to figure out who made this. Taking on the form of a serpent, I made my way over to it. I lay for a while watching this pious creation. Shifting back into the form of a young, beautiful man, I tapped this glowing ass on the shoulder. Mocking it, I asked for its name. The thing was so stupid, it couldn't even answer. It was as wide as it was tall. I named it Gaiomar the Bumbler. I smacked it in the face and got no reaction. So out of pity, I killed the creature. Soon the fun will begin, because I've harvested the first and only soul. I stood over this dead body, and a large fly approached it. It bowed before me and said, I am Nasser, the Druid of the dead. It is my job to corrupt the body and the soul of the dead. I see Father has already harvested the soul. May I harvest the husk? No. Let its creatures see what I did to it. This is blasphemy. This man was nothing more than a mobile moron. Let that shitty bird clean this mess, I replied. No sooner than I spoke those words, guess who decided to show his fat fucking face again? The sky split and all the trumpets sounded. Here comes the pious asshole, Parmesan. When he saw the corpus of Gaiomar, tears filled his eyes. The joy I felt in seeing his sorrow was immeasurable. He looked up at me and saw my shit-eaten grin. As one tear fell from Parmesan's right eye, an eagle had flown from the tear. Parmesan wailed, can you create something good? I looked over to Nasu and winked. Nasu quickly rounded up the eagle and brought it to me. From Parmesan's left eye, another tear fell, and I caught it. With this tear in my hand, I charged the eagle as I charged the star. The eagle exploded and the beautiful Melikos was created. He stood before us, proud, and I said, I could, but I choose not to. Will you bow before man whom I have created? Will you give way to those with a soul? Hormuzad begged Meliktaus. Meliktaus turned to me, then back to Hormuzad and responded, I am a divine child created from your sorrow and the doubt that is Father Ahriman. I am the smokeless flame of compassion and wisdom. Only through sorrow is wisdom attained. Only through wisdom is compassion understood. You seek enslavement upon these souls. Father Ahriman seeks to set them free through destruction. I am both divine and damned, and I choose compassion for the souls of man. I choose Father Ahriman. Just as all creatures of this world have choice, we shall meet again, Hormuzad, soon. Yes, soon. Look that my peacock has inspired upon Hormuzad's face was as wonderful as the tears that fell. My brother's eyes glazed as his jaw dropped in a gape. Shock had overtaken his mind. Fear and doubt ensued into his consciousness. He reeked of Zurban when I ripped my way out. Ahriman, you who are foul and corrupt will be defeated in the last age. I will win this war without fail. I will use the endless fire to burn you out of this world, Hormuzad yelled. Strong words from the weak. Can you not see how much of this creating is weakening you? So bring it. Bring your war. I will destroy everything that you throw at me and change its essence and then send it back to you. Every time this happens, I gain souls and weaken your joke. I responded in kind. So in other words, many things happened there. You had the creation of a creature that was half divine and half damned. In other words, he's able to move about freely between all the realms. Between heaven, between hell, between earth, between everything in between. He can do whatever the hell he wants. He made his decision and he chose to go with quote-unquote evil because evil represented freedom. And through that, and through Ahriman's destruction, he could hopefully teach people compassion. And that's what happened, but that's responsible. He's trying to take care of mankind. That's why Meliktaus is our guardian and guide. As we get further into the story, it'll become more evident on the position that Meliktaus has to play in this world. At this point, we're going to stop the Bible study at page 35, and we will get into the chapter known as Mankind. And thank you for watching this video. Again, the Bible Corruption is available at Lulu, and it's also available at Amazon on Kindle. And we also now have Bible Corruption available on paperback as well. I'm Dastur Adam, the Church Morning.
My devotion to wickedness, the burning desire of freedom, attached itself to him Tenenche, who while freeing all transcends the universe, and whom freedom from lordship is ever established, who causes annihilation of delusion, whose undefiled wisdom may manifest. Ahriman crowned him Archdeva to rule over an age of man, whose warm embrace of freedom